Today, we're going to talk about turning something as simple as a walk into one of your most powerful tools for workplace safety. Yep, we are talking about the Gemba Walk, and more importantly, how mastering it can totally transform your approach to ISO 45001 compliance. So, let's get our boots on and dive right in.
So here's the plan. First, we'll go beyond the boardroom to figure out what a Gemba Walk really is, and just as importantly, what it isn't. Then, we'll break down the 5 practical steps to actually do one effectively. After that, we'll talk about what you should be looking for, kind of like seeing your workplace with fresh eyes. And finally, we'll tie it all together and show you how this helps you pass your ISO 45001 audit with flying colors.
All right, Section 1. Look, every leader wants a safe workplace, right? But let's be honest, there's often this massive gap between the safety policies that are written in a nice, quiet boardroom and what's actually happening down on the shop floor. And that leads us to the million-dollar question. How do you bridge that gap? How do you make sure the procedures you've so carefully designed are actually being lived and breathed by your team every single day? Well, the answer, as you probably guessed, is you've got to walk the walk.
So where does this idea even come from? The term Gemba is Japanese, and it literally means the actual place. It's all about going to the source, the specific spot where the work gets done, where the value is created. It's not about reading reports from an office. It's about seeing reality with your own 2 eyes.
And this brings us to probably the biggest misconception out there. A Gemba Walk is not a traditional inspection. An inspection is all about a checklist and finding faults, right? But a Gemba Walk, that's an interactive engagement. It's about having a conversation, looking for improvements, and actually building a positive culture, not just policing people's work.
Let this be your mantra. Seriously, if you remember one thing from this whole section, make it this. A Gemba Walk is an engagement. Getting that mindset shift is absolutely crucial if you want this to work.
Okay, so now that we know what it is, how do we actually, do it? This isn't just some abstract philosophy. It's a structured process, and there are 5 key steps. Let's break them down.
Here they are, the 5 steps. First, you plan. Know where you're going and why. And please, let people know you're coming. This is not a surprise raid. Second, you just observe. Just watch. See how the work actually happens. Third, and this is key, you engage. Talk to the real experts, the people doing the job every day. Fourth, you give feedback, both the good and the improvable. And finally, you record and follow up, because let's face it, an observation without action is just tourism.
So that third step, engage, is so critical. And the questions you ask are everything. Instead of asking something like, "Are you following the rules?" try asking this. This simple, open-ended question empowers your workers. It shows you value their input, and it's direct evidence of the worker participation that ISO 45001 is looking for. It's a total game changer.
Okay, so you're on the floor. You're ready to engage. But what exactly should you be looking at? It's all about learning to see your own workplace in a completely new light.
Think about your workplace in terms of these key safety systems. You're not just hunting for isolated problems. You're observing how these big systems work in the real world. Is the PPE right for the job, and is it being used? Is the machine guarding actually working? Is housekeeping good, or are emergency exits blocked? These are the kinds of buckets your observations should fall into.
Now let's get even more specific. There are really 2 main things you're looking for. The first is an unsafe act. This is a behavior, a choice a person makes. A classic example is a worker bypassing a safety guard on a machine to get the job done faster. It's a conscious decision that introduces a ton of risk.
The second thing you're on the lookout for is an unsafe condition. Now, this is about the environment, not a person's immediate action. A fire exit that's blocked by a bunch of boxes is the perfect example. See the difference? No one is actively doing something unsafe right that second, but the condition itself is a huge hazard just waiting to happen.
All right, let's get to the payoff. Why does all this really matter when the auditor shows up at your door? Well, because a well-documented Gemba program is one of the most powerful pieces of evidence you can possibly present.
Just look at this. Your Gemba Walks directly prove you're complying with some of the most important clauses in ISO 45001. For Clause 5.1, leadership commitment, bam, there's a leader on the floor. For 5.4, consultation, you've got records of your conversations. For 6.1, hazard ID, you're doing it in real time. An auditor doesn't just want to read your procedures. They want to see them in action. This is your proof.
But, and this is a big but, auditors are pretty wise to all the tricks.
Here are the common weaknesses they spot from a mile away. Doing a Gemba the week before an audit? Yeah, that doesn't count. If it's only the safety officer going, it's not leadership commitment. And the biggest failure of all, a long list of cool observations with zero evidence that any actions were ever taken or closed out.
So, where does your organization really sit on this maturity scale? Be honest. Are you at the basic level where walks are kind of irregular? Or are you all the way up at best practice, using the data you gather to actually predict and prevent incidents before they happen? This is a fantastic tool for a little self-assessment and to map out your journey to excellence.
And that leaves us with one final crucial question. This really challenges us to think beyond that dusty binder on the shelf. Is your safety culture just a document, or is it a living, breathing part of your organization that you, as a leader, actively walk through every single day? The answer to that question will define everything.